Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Mike Johnston, author of the new book, Confessions of a Dork Lord, Book 2, Grave Danger. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. If someone listening hasn't yet heard about your new novel, Confessions of a Dork Lord, Grave Danger, how would you describe the novel?
Yeah, so Confessions of a Dork Lord is a middle grade fantasy series. So think, world of Harry Potter, boy in magic school. But, my book is kind of like Lord of the Rings meets Harry Potter with sort of a dark twist. It's the story of the son of a Dark Lord. Now, what's a Dark Lord? Well, that's sort of a big baddie, those that you find in fantasy books, a Voldemort in Harry Potter, a Sauron. Um, and I thought it would be really interesting to write a book about one of these sort of figures that we find in fantasy literature, the big bad guy. And when I finally came around to writing that book, it was something I had in my head for a really long time. I wanted to do it as a kid's book, and I thought it would be even more interesting if the book was about the son of one of these sort of evil overlords, because I thought, he'd have challenges, and that would be interesting.
Well, do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to write the second book, Grave Danger?
Sure. Grave Danger is an interesting book, and I wanted to put my character in a challenging circumstance. So he is trying to follow in his dad's footsteps, struggling to learn magic. He's in magic school and is trying to cast spells, and so he does something unexpected and tries to cast a really powerful spell that's way beyond his ability. And everything goes wrong, and he sort of ends up destroying the castle that he's one day supposed to rule. He's kicked out and made to live with his mortal enemies, the humans, people like us. He's used to living with orcs and ogres and all the monsters. Remember, this is told from the bad guy's point of view. So I wanted to put him in a place where he'd have to meet people like my reader, and I thought a lot of really fun humor could come out of that.
That's great. Well, this novel, as well as the first novel, Confessions of a Dork Lord, are illustrated. Can you tell us about the illustrator?
Yeah, Marta, I believe, lives in London. I have never met her, which is kind of fascinating, and I think the process of making an illustrated book, I think, would surprise a lot of people, because essentially I write the novels, and then she is handed the novel, and then given the chance, she finds her own inspiration within it and decides, what she wants to illustrate and how she wants to do it. And, I give feedback. We look to make sure it's consistent with the story. But really, when you read a book like this, you're getting sort of two works of art that are almost in conversation. She looks at my work and finds things she thinks are funny or entertaining, and she's really, really good at it. She's good at really opening up moments. There's a lot of mystery in these books. There's a lot of mysteries that the character has to uncover, and by working through different clues, and she'll visually put all the clues up on the page so that a reader can sort through them and kind of explore that mystery themselves. So it's really wonderful to have somebody come into your book and reimagine or explore all the ideas and characters. This is a big, fun book. It's full of zombies and vampires and dragons and all sorts of crazy monsters. And she has a ton of fun exploring those characters and really making the book funny.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you about your working process, but it sounds like from what you just described, it's somewhat separate.
Correct. It is somewhat separate. And I don't know that that's always the case, but it is in some cases the standard in the industry where the illustrator is their own artist, just like the writer, and they're given a chance to do their own work and their own contribution. That doesn't mean there's no dialogue whatsoever. We're able to, address a scene if we think it's not really what the book is saying. But it's a process that, in all honesty, I wasn't sure I'd like, and I really ended up enjoying it. Like it's a real kind of joy to see someone else come into your work and find new things or different ways of imagining it. It's really exciting and kind of invigorating.
I was going to ask, is it exciting when you finally see the artwork for the manuscript?
It is. In fact, that's aside from actually finishing the novel and having the various parts come together, which is always a joy. Um, it is exciting to see these, and you see them roll in stages, which is always helpful. So the artist will mock up each of the illustrations in a sort of rough form, which gives you a chance to comment before they've. These are pen and ink drawings, maybe before she's added all the ink. So we're able to refine them, and the publisher does something similar. They go through it and they'll edit too. So
Sure.
but it is super exciting to see these. And I have a lot of big fantasy locations in grave danger. They have to, after visiting the humans, he also goes on a visit to an underground world filled with the undead. And so I filled these books with these amazing sort of fantasy locations, and so it's really fun to see somebody bring them to life in kind of big 2-page spreads that the kids can really dive into.
That's great. Well, what was your writing journey that led you to writing and getting your first novel published?
That's a good question. I am trained as an architect, and I actually practiced for quite a while. But I'm also like a lifelong sci-fi and fantasy reader. It's something I always loved and always wanted to explore. And as my career in architecture went along, I found myself wanting to do something a little more creative, something where I maybe had a little more creative control. And honestly, aside from architecture, books are really the only other thing I had a lot of interest in. So it took a long time. I've been writing for a long time, so it was a slow transition between the two. It takes and I publish for adults. I write adult. I write epic fantasy for Tor. I have a series called The Amber Throne. The first book was Solari, sort of in the genre of Game of Thrones, and so I also write for adults, and that was my first published novel. And I also write middle grade for kids, and they're very different. And I really like that. They don't compete with each other for space in my head. The adult work is very serious. It's a little darker. And the kids stuff is pure fun. So I get to move between these two worlds. And I find that really refreshing.
Hey, this is Jeff, host of the podcast. Sometimes it seems like there's just an infinite amount of information out there. And that's exactly why I love Wondrium. Wondrium is a streaming platform that offers thousands of programs and documentaries from respected experts who really know their stuff. And for the listeners of this podcast, Wondrium has a wide selection of writing resources. How to write best-selling fiction, how to publish your book, writing creative nonfiction, every day is a poem, how to create comics, and much, much more. And the best part, you can watch or listen anytime, anywhere with the Wondrium app. Download and watch or listen on the go. Explore all of your wonders with Wondrium, and your brain will love it. That's WONDRIUM.com/BOOKS. Again, sign up today at Wondrium.com/books to get unlimited access with a 14-day free trial. Give it a try.
Don't miss incredible Macy's Black Friday and July specials, like 50% off designer dresses for any occasion. And complete the look with 30 to 50% off summer shoes and sandals. And get 40 to 60% off gadgets and cookware from Martha Stewart collection. Or get an extra 25% off with your coupon or Macy's card. Plus, download the Macy's app for even more great deals. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
And are the Tor novels published under your name or a pen name?
Yes. Almost it's almost like a joke with myself. My Tor novels are published under Michael Johnston, and my kids' novels are published under Mike Johnston.
Got it.
which oddly enough is considered a different name. When I had to create two different Amazon profiles, and it's really interesting that even that slight change causes and my editor asked me not to do it. They said, why don't you just use the same exact name? It's almost the same. I thought, it's actually kind of funny that my kids' books are under Mike.
Right.
I asked to do it because it sort of amused me, and I kind of like the Mike name on my kids' books.
And so with the Tor novels, the adult fantasy novels, is there more than one published?
There are two in the series. I wanted to do something compact. So it was a story that I had planned out in two novels and sold to them as a duology. And they purchased the two novels, and I wrote them, published in 2017 and 2020, the first and second novels. So I really like that series because it's you don't have to sort of slog through 10 novels that were written over 20 years. They were conceived fully as one story in two parts, and really they could have been issued almost in one sort of 1,200 page volume. But it works well. It was all worked out in advance, so it's a great series, and I loved writing it.
And are you working on another novel now?
I am. I have an idea for a sci-fi book that I'm just in the proposal stage for. And I'm also working on another middle grade book because I'd like to keep both careers chugging along. And a middle grade book that's a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland that I'm very excited about. So hopefully that one will sell first, I think. So hopefully I'll hear about that in the future.
So what is your writing process when you're working on one of the Dorklord novels? Do you outline the book before you start writing, or do you just jump into the narrative? How does that work for you?
I developed a process. I started as an adult author. I wrote the two novels for Tor first. So I sort of established my working method there, and I've stuck to it. It really works for me, and I use it for my proposals as well. I do outline. I come from a background as an architecture. We are quintessential planners, very organized people, and so I will outline heavily, and I will. Literally, I start with a sentence, and the sentence becomes a paragraph, and the paragraph becomes a story that's 5 or 6 pages, and then 15 pages and 20. And then I find myself breaking it down into chapters and then developing each of those seeds into a fully grown chapter outline. And then literally there's almost no line between the writing and the outline. At that point, the chapter outlines could be 2 or 3 pages long. And so I can just dive into them one at a time and sort of explode them out into full, prose, into chapters. So I kind of have this process developed, and it works incredibly well for me. Especially for the adult books, I enjoy a lot of complexity. I'll take, 3 or 4 or 5 point of view characters and mix together plot lines in disparate locations that all weave together into a tapestry. So I find I can only do that with a lot of organization. And, the kids' books aren't that complex, obviously, in any way, but the method still holds, and so I use it.
Advice would you offer for those who are working on their own stories and novels?
It's interesting. What has benefited me most in times is simple persistence. Not thinking that there's a magical process of writing. Just simply sitting down at a desk for 3 hours, 4 hours at a time and writing, just, treating it like work, instead of maybe some magical creative process. Simply, you have to be at your desk. You have to be writing all the time and doing it. And, not losing sight of your goals, even when something doesn't sell or something doesn't go right. It's certainly a long process, and you can't let the low points distract you from your goals.
Well, what novels or nonfiction books have you read recently that you enjoyed?
What have I read recently? I just read Michio Kaku's The Future of Humanity. I'm very interested in space travel and SpaceX, stuff like that. And it was kind of a great primer on maybe the next, 20, 30 years of technology, space exploration. how we'll get to Mars, what we'll do after we get to Mars, what the technology is like that'll take us to Mars, that'll help us build on the moon and on Mars and on the planets beyond. Really, really solid kind of primer on that material. And I really enjoyed that. That was a fun kind of quick read, a lot of geeky sci-fi references too, but also some solid science without being overly technical. So good read, definitely.
That's great. Well, where can people find you online if they'd like to learn more about you and your middle grade novels, as well as your adult fantasy novels?
Sure. I have a website, Michael Johnston Author, and you can always find out current news from me on Twitter or Instagram at mjohnston, Johnston, author, all one word, M Johnston Author, on Instagram or Twitter. And recently, because I write for kids, I joined TikTok, which is terrible. I can't believe I'm on it. It's awful. My kid is so embarrassed also that I'm there. I share her embarrassment.
Are you doing videos?
Oh, yes. It's terrible.
Okay. Well, again, we've been speaking with Mike Johnston, author of the new novel, Confessions of a Dork Lord, Grave Danger. And as he explained, he also writes adult fantasy under Michael Johnston. The new novel is available now, so go buy a copy. And Mike, thanks for doing this interview.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Don't miss incredible Macy's Black Friday and July specials, like 50% off designer dresses for any occasion. And complete the look with 30 to 50% off summer shoes and sandals. And get 40 to 60% off gadgets and cookware from Martha Stewart Collection. Or get an extra 25% off with your coupon or Macy's card. Plus, download the Macy's app for even more great deals. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
Time for a break to talk about another great deal at McDonald's. It's summer, you're hot, and McDonald's is here to keep you chill with their new frozen drinks. Try their medium frozen Coke, frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, and frozen Fanta Wild Cherry for just $1.69. What a sweet way to beat the heat. Grab it through the drive-thru or order on the app. Price and participation may vary, cannot be combined with any other offer. McD app download and registration required.